Crypto products are unregulated and could be highly volatile. Please be aware of the risks before investing.
राज, बाबूजी के आशीर्वाद से हमने अपनी नई शुरुआत तो कर ली, पर अपना फ्यूचर प्लान कैसे करें?
बड़े बड़े शहरों में ऐसी छोटी छोटी बातें होती रहती हैं।
Looking for perfect start? Get a Bitcoin today. Download the Unocoin app.
जब मैं तेरी उम्र का था ना, तो एक सक्सेसफुल करियर, लॉन्ग टर्म प्लानिंग सब रेडी करके रख चुका था। और एक इन महाराज को देखो, पूरा दिन फोन में लगा रहेगा।
दैट प्लानिंग तो मैंने भी कर रखी है, Unocoin के साथ।
नए जमाने के साथ नई चीजें आजमाएं। Looking for Bitcoin? Download the Unocoin app.
Guys, we really need to work hard. This wasn't a good quarter. Tell me, are you happy with this?
Yes! Unocoin.
Want to earn Bitcoin? Just grab your phone and shake it. Download the Unocoin app.
Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin.
Get a systematic buying plan from the Unocoin app to get your Bitcoin today. Download the Unocoin app.
Hello guys and welcome back to another one of Unocoin's AMA, that is Ask Me Anything. First of all, आप सभी को रंगों के त्योहार होली की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं. May this Holi fill your life with colors of joy, happiness and lots of success. So a lot of times there is an odd comparison between different crypto assets. Mostly it's Bitcoin versus something else. But guys, what makes Bitcoin better than all the other crypto assets? We'll find that out today right here in this AMA and answer all your questions regarding our topic, which is how is Bitcoin better option than any other crypto asset? This is your host Shambhavi Soni, and for this I'd like you to introduce you to our ultimate Bitcoin specialist, Mr. Sunny Ray. Hi Sunny, how are you today?
I'm well, Shambhavi. Happy Holi.
Happy Holi. So guys, those of you who are new to our AMA today, Sunny is one of the early birds to step into the crypto space. If I reckon right after the creation of Bitcoin, Sunny, isn't that right?
Oh no, I mean not right after, but soon after, a couple years after. I heard about Bitcoin back in, I think it was around 2011 or so, and then we started Unocoin officially in 2013.
Oh, that's great then. So of course, I think by the time the first altcoin came into the existence, you were well aware of the entire concept and you were exploring it quite extensively, as we already know. So I really feel like there can be no better person than Sunny to tell you about why is Bitcoin a better option than any other crypto asset today. So Sunny, before starting off, I have this one quick question for you. What was your reaction when the first altcoin came into existence? What was the feeling? What was the emotions and everything?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the first one that I was probably aware of was Litecoin. Yeah, so Litecoin is pretty much like Bitcoin. It's the founder of Litecoin took Bitcoin and essentially changed 3 parameters inside the Bitcoin protocol and redeployed it as a new coin and essentially referred it to Litecoin as, if Bitcoin is gold, Litecoin is silver. And that narrative is kind of stuck even, this long after. But that's the first one that I can remember that's, still relevant, is Litecoin. And
So
how did I feel? Um, I mean, so like Bitcoin fundamentally is open source, right? So I'm not too surprised that other people are trying to, tweak it. I think that's one of the most amazing things about Bitcoin, the fact that, you could take Bitcoin and change 3 parameters and call it Shambhavi coin, right? So that's one of the beauties of Bitcoin,
yes.
is that nobody owns the code. Everybody can share it and build whatever they want. But when I thought about it some more, I just I don't know. It was like when I looked at Bitcoin for the first time and compared it against everything that came before it, it was like, oh my Lord, this is amazing. But then when I looked at anything after Bitcoin, including Litecoin and including most of the things we'll talk about today, I wasn't as touched by the level of innovation from Bitcoin to these other ones. It felt like, oh, they just tweaked 1 or 2 things and they released it. So it doesn't seem like, I don't get why people are so excited about, let's say Litecoin. So I always struggled with trying to understand why people would. But, I think one of the big reasons is people like, they believe that if they buy a coin that's cheaper than Bitcoin, then there's a good chance that, they'll have a bigger upside because, well, it hasn't gone up as high as Bitcoin and it will. And so I'll get that. So I think that's one of the reasons they gravitate towards these newer coins. But yeah, my initial feelings was like, it was somewhat expected, but at the same time, I wasn't super, excited about like Litecoin or anything like that.
Okay. So, as you started, we have a question from NPC already. He's
Oh, wow.
asking, as BTC is not an uptrend right now, wherein AI, Metaverse, DeFi cryptos are showing some uptrend. So for the small traders, do you suggest to invest in BTC or other cryptos for better gains?
That's a good question. I mean, just in short, and by the way, I'm not your financial advisor or a financial advisor. So obviously, this is just 2 of us having a discussion. Everyone should do their own research. And these are just my opinion. What I will say is that, I mean, I'm not against the innovation in the space. I mean, we are a crypto exchange, so we do offer 85 crypto assets, and ultimately we believe in freedom. We believe that people should be able to make whatever decision they choose. Now, if I was talking to, let's say, a close friend of mine, what I would suggest, and they were saying, "Hey, Sunny, this Bitcoin crypto thing seems kind of interesting. How do you think I should approach it?" I would tell them, look at Bitcoin first. That's what I tell everyone. Study Bitcoin and get some exposure to Bitcoin. Not too much exposure, because you don't want to bet the farm on something that is, new, that you understand. So put a little bit of money into it, perhaps. And then once you start accumulating a bit of Bitcoin, and month after month, let's say you decide you're going to put 1% of everything you earn, right? Not much, but 1% of everything you earn, and you start acquiring Bitcoin. And once you have a little bit of Bitcoin, maybe 1% of that, or if you're super risky, maybe 10% of the Bitcoin that you own, maybe consider putting it into something that you really think is bullish or you're excited about. But I would limit, I mean, personally, I would limit how much of your total assets you put into Bitcoin, number one. But then of the Bitcoin that you own, I would think, again, 1 to 10% of that, perhaps, if you're super, super confident, think about putting it into crypto. So what that does is that gives you exposure to Bitcoin, the one asset that made everything start. And he's saying here that Bitcoin is not in an uptrend. It's not in an uptrend if you look at a 1-year time scale. But if you step back again, and if I were to ask you, what's the one digital asset that has a 10-year track record? Nothing else does, because we just talked about how Bitcoin came to market first. So when you look at things like track record, and I'm going to probably refer to this more than a few times, but there's this term called risk-adjusted return. Risk-adjusted return. So what that means is your potential for return, but normalized by how much risk you're taking. So what that means, essentially, in short, to me, is that I believe Bitcoin represents the biggest upside, when you take into consideration how much like volatility and risk you'll have to endure in the process. So I could be wrong. There could be some other coin that does way, way better than Bitcoin in the next 3 weeks, let's say. So, oh, Sunny, you never told us about XYZ coin. How come that's going to the moon? But then it's very likely that that one, if it goes up 1,000%, it'll come down 1,000%, and it's very volatile. And so while you have a good chance of maybe becoming wealthy, you're going to sacrifice your sleep at night, which I think people don't think about that much, but I think it's valuable because you don't want to be stressed out your whole life and I lost everything I made, and that's a very stressful position to be. And so again, keep in mind that all of this stuff is new. It's very novel. I would even go as far as to say some of this stuff is somewhat experimental, right? Because some of these assets just came out in the last few years. So exercise extreme caution, but that's how I would approach it.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
think NPC, you got an amazing answer to your question, and I think that is how we should manage our crypto things. Of course, for short term, even meme coins show a great uptrend at times, and then their downtrend is, like, I would say, it's like you cannot even do anything about that till the time maybe Elon Musk tweets something new. So
Yeah, exactly. And then yeah. So again, it's exciting, and I'm not gonna lie, like I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. So when he talks about something, whether it's Dogecoin or whatever, it definitely makes a lot of heads turn. But I know this one's hard, but I would also, just because someone else is doing something, it's important not to jump into it, because like I would really try and understand why is Elon Musk even saying, let's say Dogecoin is good, and if his reasoning is it's kind of interesting if you think about it. He's like, what is it, the thing that is most I forget what the word he uses, but pretty much he talks about Dogecoin in light of like how it's kind of comical and it's like solving a serious problem, and that combination is what he finds intriguing, right? But again, I would do your research and don't make a decision just because Elon Musk said something either. Like, try and understand what your real reasoning is. Wow, lots of questions coming in. Okay, so what's the next one, Shambhavi?
yeah, so PMN online here is asking, will Shiba Inu be a good investment for the coming 10 years?
Yeah, like I said, the only thing I'm gonna be, I know my AMAs are probably getting a bit boring compared to Satvig's because I'm a bit of a broken record. But if you even watch a video of mine from like 5 years ago, I pretty much say the same thing over and over again, which is, yeah, if you're my friend, if you're my family member, I'm telling you dollar cost average into Bitcoin if you can afford it and have a tiny bit of exposure to other crypto assets. Mainly because, again, Shiba Inu, is there a chance it could beat Bitcoin? Yes. But do I believe it will, from a risk-adjusted perspective, will it beat Bitcoin in the next 10 years? I don't think so. And I think those are the reasons we're going to go into in this talk today, right? We have a bunch of, like, I lined up a bunch of kind of bullet points. But it's, and again, I'm not saying this for the reason that I'm maybe stubborn or I don't know. I'm like, I don't like taking any risks or anything, right? We wouldn't have started Unocoin if we weren't risk takers. But at the same time, we think it's important to stand for something. Yeah, I guess that's the way to say it.
100.
And I find, like, when I think about Bitcoin, when I talk about Bitcoin, I actually feel something. Like I feel like the movement, I feel the energy, I feel like all these smart people around the world, trying to create a better future. When I look at a lot of other crypto, unfortunately, I don't get that same feeling, right? And I wish I could say opposite. I wish I could be like, because I'm a crypto exchange, let's go. But again, there is a lot of, I think, false excitement. I think there's a lot of, maybe perhaps very, very young people that maybe don't know what they're doing or don't understand the full picture. So again, I'd be careful. But to me, Bitcoin represents the biggest upside in terms of really short term, mid term, and long term, if you ask me. One of our investors, right? So Tim Draper invested in us a couple years ago, and he's one of the kind of key players in the world, right? When it comes to like Bitcoin and all of that. And he just came out with an article yesterday saying he believes 100% with 100% certainty that Bitcoin is going to $250,000 in the next year. Now, I'm not saying that. I know exactly. See, That's what I'm saying. So and that is one of the wealthiest, smartest people in the world / in the Bitcoin space making claims like that, right? So is it actually going to do that? Who knows, right? But I would pause for a second and ask myself, like, this man is a multi-billionaire. He invested in Tesla, SpaceX, Hotmail, Skype, this, that. What is it? Why does he keep talking about Bitcoin and not Shiba Inu? Right. And again, I think one of the there's lots of answers to that question, but I think one of the answers is network effects, right? So Bitcoin got out of the gate early and it maintained that kind of network effects. And keep in mind one thing, right? The Bitcoin is open source. Let's say some other project does something very, very cool and amazing. The Bitcoiners, the people who are building the Bitcoin network, the code, they could look at that other project and say, hey, we like that idea. Let's bring that over to Bitcoin because it's open source. It might take 6 months, this, that to develop, but it's not that, it's not that Bitcoin is just like unchangeable or anything like that either. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% true. I think that is one of the major reasons why it's so popular all across the world.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is so there's another follow-up question from PMN Online. So I'll be taking that first, and after that we'll
Sure.
address all the other questions. PMN is saying, okay, Sunny, thanks. Last question: what should be the exposure to BTC in the model portfolio of equity, debt, gold, and crypto?
Wow, it's a great question again. Yeah, I mean, these are all obviously like kind of personal questions that people would have to answer themselves. Um, like I said, I try and keep it simple. And again, even when I used to be a financial advisor, you can never give general financial advice, right? Because if you're, let's say, 80 years old and you have a few rupees left in your bank account, you have a different risk profile than somebody who's, let's say, 18 years old and started their first job, because that 18-year-old can take a lot more risk because he has more time on his hands, right? So when you take a decision in terms of how much exposure you should have to something or another, you have to kind of look at the big picture and ask yourself, do you have appetite for risk, this and that? But ultimately, like I mean, if I had to pick a rule of thumb, I would suggest to most people like 1% of your income to 10% max. If you're super, super bullish, you should be putting away in something like Bitcoin for the chance that it, continues doing what it's been doing for the last 10 years, which is outperform every other asset in the world by a huge margin, right? I forget the exact number, but Bitcoin, in the time I learned about it, when I first learned about Bitcoin, it was like $5, $10, which is what about 500 rupees at the time. Today, it's at $24,000. So obviously Bitcoin is done really well, and people forget that larger kind of context, right? The longer time frame picture. So that's why I'm trying to come on these shows every day and trying to remind people that don't take your eye off of Bitcoin, and and see how it does. But just to sum up the answer to the question, like I said, I would not have, perhaps if you're diversifying across debt, gold, equity, and all of that, then maybe Bitcoin, sorry, should represent less than maybe 10% of your portfolio. And again, that even changes as a function of your level of education and knowledge, meaning as you start to get more and more comfortable and you're like, no, I really do believe in this, then you make your own decisions right after that. But again, I wouldn't, if you don't know much and you're just starting to learn, I think it's better to err on the side of less than more. And what they say is, they say never put more money into Bitcoin than you can afford to lose, right? Yeah. So again, but maximize your learning, because that you can't really lose out on, right? If you just like read about this stuff and learn. Yeah. Okay. We can see.
So
Thanks for BTC price prediction. Yeah, you're welcome.
okay, next over here we're having the next question is from Lambert. Shut up. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm sorry, but his question is: the Wall Street Journal has had an article about Bitcoin's future depending on a handful of 5 maintainers. So isn't that risky?
Is Lambert talking about mining or like
I
exchanges?
think I think it's about
And Lambert, if you want to also give us the link to the article, maybe we can just take a quick look at it and make sure we answer your question properly. The Wall Street had an article about Bitcoin's future that is too dependent on handful of 5 maintainers. Isn't that risky? Um, how many people make the decisions for the US dollar? It's probably, like probably a handful of people inside of a closed room. It's not open source. And can you, if you wanted to, become a part of that, let's say, group of 5 people? No. So Bitcoin, first of all, it's not 5. There are thousands of miners, right? There might be 5 or 10 major miners, right? That might be what they're referring to. And there's also a couple of major global exchanges as well. Um, but yeah, no, I don't believe Bitcoin is. I think one of the biggest benefits of Bitcoin is that it is decentralized. You have miners all over the world, you have exchanges all over the world, you have users all over the world, developers all over the world. And so it's fairly. I mean, I feel like it's very, very decentralized. And keep in mind, there's no artificial limit saying that it cannot be more decentralized. Like if today Lambert said, "I'm going to become one of the top Bitcoin miners in the world," you could foreseeably become that. It might not be so easy, but it's possible. So as a result, I don't believe that it's. I don't agree with maybe the Wall Street Journal, but that wouldn't be the first time. Uh, yeah.
Okay. So next we have a question from Selfless. He's asking, I have 2 options, layer 1 or layer 2. Which makes my future?
You make your future. I don't know. I don't think layer 1 or layer 2. I just see layer 1, layer 2 as I don't know what to say. Okay, so I think maybe let me just first back up. So what people, or what I think Selfless. He went by Selfless. He changed his name.
Yeah.
That gentleman's been on most of our calls.
Yes, yes.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to think of maybe how to approach it. But okay, so layer 1 is like Bitcoin, right? And layer 2 is like Liquid or Lightning. And in Ethereum too, there's like Ethereum, the layer 1, the main blockchain, and then there's layer 2 solutions on top of it that they're trying to build. And so the whole idea, let's just stick to Bitcoin for now, is that when you want to do so Bitcoin is very interesting, right? But the thing is as you start to move more and more assets on the layer 1, the fees tend to go up. And so then what happens is at a certain point, like for example, even a couple of years ago, it ballooned to like $10 or something, or $5 to even send 1 Bitcoin. And so if it costs so much money to send Bitcoin on the layer 1, then what if somebody wants to send, let's say, 10 paisa? They can't, because it costs $10 or whatever, 500 rupees to send 10 paisa. That doesn't make sense. So essentially, a lot of the smart people in the Bitcoin space said, hey, why don't we build layer 2 solutions? So these are solutions that sit on top of Bitcoin, and they're not the core of the Bitcoin network. So they don't, record every single transaction in the main network, but they have another layer on top of it. And this is actually how a lot of the internet and computers work in general, right? In the sense that when you play video games like internationally with 10 of your buddies around the world, you're actually using systems that are very similar, where they're not doing everything on one computer, but they're actually splitting it up into different layers. So if I had to pick one, I would probably say layer 1 is probably more significant, because layer 2 doesn't exist without layer 1. But then I don't know, if you're thinking about like opportunities and building companies and stuff, layer 2 might actually be a better place to start, because there's not as many Lightning wallets out there, right? So I would look at something like Blue Wallet perhaps, and maybe fork that and build something, for India specifically, that's like a Lightning wallet. That would be in my view, a great business opportunity. And you could use, let's say, an Unocoin API even in the background to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and you can just focus on that app that you could build on the front end. So I would say, like, obviously layer 1's more important, because you don't have layer 2 without layer 1. But in terms of maybe business opportunities and looking at where to build something, maybe layer 2 might be a very interesting place, because again, now with it's a lot, but ordinals and all this stuff going on, I think the fees on Bitcoin might start to go up quite a bit. And so I think a lot of people will start learning about Lightning. Did that answer your question? Hopefully, maybe not. But let's
Most
keep
probably, yes.
going.
So I
Large,
think
yeah.
I think he got the answer he wanted. Okay, then we have Abhishek Jain from LinkedIn. He is asking, how do you look at staking as an opportunity, both as business and investing? What are the risks one should keep in mind before staking their assets?
That's a great question. In short, I personally don't like. I'm not a huge fan of staking, mainly because I believe that Bitcoin mining. So for those who don't know, there's a very kind of distinct difference between, you could say, Bitcoin and almost everything else now. The way Bitcoin transactions are secured is using something called Bitcoin mining, which involves, miners to have to buy supercomputers and I mean, I don't know if you heard, but last week there was I don't forget where it was in the US, maybe Pennsylvania or something, where they launched a nuclear power plant that drives, a Bitcoin mining operation. In El Salvador, they have a volcano where they use geothermal energy for securing the Bitcoin network. And so I really value the fact that in order for new Bitcoins to come into existence and in order for Bitcoin to be confirmed that they are actually real, the transactions, that it is fairly energy intensive in the sense that because it takes a lot of energy. I know people talk about, oh, Bitcoin takes too much energy and it's bad, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at, how important money is, I do think that, having a strong network like the Bitcoin mining network to support these transactions is key and, very hard to replace. Staking does not rely on supercomputers and, this concept of like energy intensive mining equipment, blah, blah, blah. Instead, what staking says is they say, anybody that holds, let's just say Ethereum for that matter, right? Just to use an example, if I have, let's say, 1,000 Ether, I can use that 1,000 Ether and stake it, and I can essentially just lock up that Ether into the network, and I can't use that Ether anymore. It's locked, but for locking it, I get paid some Ether back, and that locking mechanism is what staking is. And they argue that staking is what keeps the network secure and safe. But again, in my mind, it just seems like, wait, that means that the richest people with Ether will just get richer, and also it just means that, I don't know. In my mind, I feel like the system breaks down. I don't know if you heard recently in the U.S. There's a lot of question marks around staking, right? So, I won't name it, but one of the big exchanges, right, recently got in trouble from the government for staking. Now, what the reasons are, it's still a bit unclear, but those same regulators have come out on the other hand saying, while we think staking may actually qualify, may turn some of these digital assets into securities, we don't believe Bitcoin is a security. Bitcoin is still a commodity, right? And I think some of that has to do with the fact that no one person, no entity controls Bitcoin mining. It's truly decentralized. Whereas staking, once again, a core group of people just made the decision that, hey, Ethereum, we don't want to be doing mining anymore for whatever reason. Now we want to be doing staking. And they were able to make that change. So there is an argument to be made that, it's not a decentralized network because a group of people are making these decisions and changing, essentially the essence of it. The second thing I'd say, just more simply put, staking hasn't been around as long as Bitcoin mining. So again, I do put a lot of emphasis on, how long something's been around, just because it shows that it's resilient and it's resilient towards hackers, towards regulators, towards, I don't know, bad guys, anyone who's trying to take advantage of it. But so I personally, again, would exercise a ton of caution. I would look at staking very closely, and study it if it's something that's interesting to you. But on a personal note, I'm not a huge fan of staking. I'm probably the most boring interviewer in the world. Oh wow, I am a fan of this person. You want to sit down? Yeah,
Hi.
continue. This is Emma.
Okay. Moving on to
All
next
right.
question for me. I think Abhishek got
Yeah.
a really nice answer to his question because as more and more you do your research, you know what is a better option for you and maybe what can make you more money. I would just say don't take too much of stress. Do your own research, and that will be enough to tell you which option would be the best for you to start trading in, or start staking in, or investing in. Okay. So Lambert here has given, I think, a reference for the article he was talking about. He's saying
Cool.
Wall Street Journal had an article about Bitcoin's future. Okay, these are not miners, I suppose, but people who have the ability to update the source code, maybe. And he has also put one quote from the article itself. It seems there is a group of 5 people currently who have the keys to the software that most of Bitcoin network uses, who actually do have a lot of influence. So I think what he's trying to say is like just 5 people have the control of the main source code of Bitcoin.
Mm, 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 mm. Huh, that's a good question. That's a good question. So how do I answer this? I mean, I mean, ultimately somebody has to, right? Somebody has to be able to make commits to the actual code. So I think it's important that somebody does, and that position has changed, right? So at the beginning it was Satoshi. He handed it over to somebody named Gavin, who kind of ran with it for a while, and then we had others come in. But key thing that important to keep in mind that just because those 5 people can make updates to the code does not mean that, let's say you run a node in your house, that you have to run that code just because they made that change. So it's up to you as a node runner whether you want to run and execute that code. It's up to you as a miner to decide whether or not you actually want to run that new update, right? So meaning, yes, there's about 5 or 6 people that can perhaps, and by the way, those 5 people don't make the decisions. There's a whole range of other people that are actually doing the coding and whatnot, but those are the people that are actually committing to it. But I think it is a good argument. I do think that could represent a potential attack vector for Bitcoin. And if people have solutions on how they would solve it, I'm sure the Bitcoin core team would be open to hearing that. But keep in mind, ultimately, let's say you were super, super talented at coding the Bitcoin, network, you could foreseeably become one of those 5 people, right? Like, meaning it's not like those 5 people are set in stone and it's like it can't change. It's kind of like a merit. I mean, I see it more as a meritocracy, right? And I mean, those 5 people have earned their kind of position to be there, and it's the open source community that has agreed that those people should be there. And in the past, when people didn't want somebody there, they were gone, right? Like, so in the past, there are examples where if somebody started deviating from kind of the ethos of Bitcoin, they got, I don't know. I mean, people can look up kind of what happened with Gavin and all of that. But my point is I feel like, yes, that I think that's a very valid point, that there is potentially some sort of attack there. But again, if you kind of look at how Bitcoin works in terms of people have the option to run code or not, I think you start to realize that there's much more to this. And there are many stories in Bitcoin too, where a certain group of people wanted to increase the block size. A certain other group of people did not want to increase it, and there was a big battle between the businesses and the miners and the main code maintainers, right? But if you look at those stories and study them, you'll see that, again, no one person controls it. Ultimately, Bitcoin is kind of it's kind of in its own entity, right? Like, another more recent example is this concept of ordinals, where people are literally stamping JPEGs to the Bitcoin layer 1 network. And a lot of smart Bitcoiners are saying this is the worst thing that could ever happen. Why are people doing this? Think of the poor person who wants to buy some Bitcoin for cheap, and now they can't because you're taking up the block space, blah, blah, blah. But it just, again, demonstrates that Bitcoin maximalists don't control Bitcoin. Some new group of guys came in. They said, hey, we want to do what we want to do with Bitcoin. And they're able to do it because it's open source. So anyways, I do think Bitcoin is still very much the most decentralized option. And that's why I'm most excited about it.
Okay, so PMN Online is saying hi to your daughter. He's saying hi, cutie.
Someone said, do you want to say hello?
Oh, she's sad.
She's still waking up.
Yeah.
Look at this. She has this eye cover.
Yeah.
Very, very diligent. Okay, there you go. Nice. Good night. Hello.
Okay. So, Sunny, remember we were talking just before the EMA about the new provision that has been implemented by the government of India. Selfless
Yeah.
has a question regarding that here, so that maybe we can, touch a bit on this
Mhm.
topic. He's asking India Gazette, which is also Bharat Patrika of India, finds something about crypto that all crypto businesses in country would come under the ambit of PMLA. What does it mean?
So the first thing I'll say is we're doing an AMA with Satvik, our CEO, on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to do a deep dive on this topic because a lot of people are asking about it. What I'll say is that so when we started Unocoin in 2013, there were obviously no rules around Bitcoin because barely anyone even knew about it. But from day one, Shambhavi, we chose to, like, we essentially recognized that things like Bitcoin, as excited as we are about them, they do pose a threat, right? They pose a threat in the form of, I mean, if it's truly
Yeah.
money and it's censorship resistant and you can send it across borders, you could do this, you could do that, you could see a world where bad guys could use it, right? And so for us, from day one, we felt like it was important to work with the government, work with law enforcement and regulators, and work in line with them, and to try and essentially build a business that gave people in India the upside of Bitcoin, right, and crypto, but also mitigated against the negative side, the risks of Bitcoin. So what I'm trying to get at is from day one, despite these new rulings, Unocoin has done full KYC. We have a very I would argue maybe the most stringent kind of KYC AML policies, and so the ruling recently that just came out essentially crypto exchanges and VASPs, virtual asset service providers, in the same category as banks and payment providers. So for example, banks and whatnot, if there's something like fishy that happens with a customer, they have to report it to the government, and there's all these kind of special things that you're required as a company. And so yeah, so the government's now saying that, look, this technology's gotten to a point where we need to ensure that we put the proper guardrails in place. And so that's essentially what's happening. I don't believe it'll change how Unocoin operates significantly, mainly because we've been doing this despite the ruling being required, and we've been doing it from day one. But yeah, I think time will tell, and I think, like I said, Satvik will go deeply into this topic because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about it.
Yeah. So as a concluding remark, just so everyone is like, maybe having a little bit of gist of what this is nothing negative. There's no negative impact on any users holdings, price, or I don't know about price already, but yeah, it should not impact you in any negative manner at all, because this is just a good move towards maybe regulating the things better, and also, yeah, taking a step against the terrorism funding that happens all across the globe, and of course money laundering and everything. So this is just a step to prevent all those things, and nothing to impact your crypto trading activities. Okay, so moving forward from selfless himself, we had this one question, but it looks like we missed it out when we were talking about other things. Here he's asking, large cap investment is good and profitable, so should we invest in top 10 market coins?
That's another great question. So, I mean, as everyone knows, I'm always talking about Bitcoin, and I'm rarely, talking about other crypto. And I think this topic is supposed to be about Bitcoin versus crypto. However, I will say that it's human nature, right, to want to profit, to want to make money, obviously, right? And so, Unocoin has something called an Uno basket. I don't know if people know about this, but or like a crypto basket of sorts. And what it is so one thing we noticed a long time ago is that like I keep saying, I think Bitcoin is kind of the best thing to have most of your crypto in. But then let's say you decide that 10% of your Bitcoin you want to allocate it across the top 10 crypto assets. You can do that within Unocoin, meaning you can just click a button and just auto allocate as per market cap, as per volume, whatever, and across those 10 assets, right? And so we built that tool mainly to address this question that people have, which is, I want exposure to the top 10 crypto assets because I don't know, like maybe one of those will pop and it'll allow me to maybe turn that into Bitcoin and get more Bitcoin. So for that reason, we introduced that the crypto basket, and And yeah, I mean, so you could say that yes, maybe the large cap investments are good and potentially profitable. But again, if you just look at the top 10, let's say 10 years ago, you look at the top 10 coins. 5 years ago, you look at the top 10 coins. Today, you look at the top 10 coins. The only one in there maybe will be Bitcoin, right? Maybe actually Ethereum now for 5 years has been number 2. So you could argue, Ethereum has some staying power. I would argue perhaps, against that if you look at it in comparison to Bitcoin. But at the same time, yeah, it has done quite well. So yeah, if you're looking to kind of, again, you don't maybe want to do all the research, you don't have the time, but you want to get a little bit of exposure, that's something that you could consider. But again, as I keep saying, me, the best bet, risk adjusted bet is Bitcoin. Yeah.
Okay. So I think, Selfless, you got the answer to your question. Next, moving forward, Sunny, I have a few questions for you, which I've been waiting to ask because our audience was, too eager to ask their questions first. Okay. So, like we all know, Bitcoin is the most popular crypto asset that maybe people who don't even know much about crypto know about Bitcoin. For them, crypto and Bitcoin is like one and the same concept. A lot of people, especially in India. So, do you think this kind of makes it better in some manner as compared to other crypto assets? Somewhat more credible, somewhat more prominence wise. It's like a more like how we talk about news. If more people know it, it's like a true story. So, like more people believe in Bitcoin, it's like a more trustworthy story. Do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're referring to this, but I think you are, which is there's this concept again called network effects, right? Like if you decided tomorrow, Sunny, I have an idea to build a new internet. It's far better than the current internet.
Yeah.
People would just look at you funny because even if you built something better, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because there's so much infrastructure, so many people, like it's already defined and it like it works, right? So it's not always the best that wins, right? But like I said, Bitcoin, because it was first to market, because it's open source, because it's evolving. I think again, Bitcoin is really the best bet, and yeah, I think the thing you're talking about, network effects, is one of the main reasons I'm very bullish on Bitcoin, because again, it was first to market, and having network effects like leads to a lot of other downstream benefits, like you attract the smartest people to work on your project. You have countries that claim they're going to use Bitcoin as their national currency. You have people like Elon Musk that are holding Bitcoin personally and on Tesla's balance sheet, and on and on. And you have people like Tim Draper talking about Bitcoin. He's not going on the news saying Dogecoin will be 250x what it is today. He's saying Bitcoin, right? And even Elon, right? I mean, he's just kind of a crazy thinker, and so yeah, I mean, and one day he's excited about Doge, and then he's working on Twitter and going to Mars and this and that. So I don't know, but yeah, I do think that we're living in exciting times.
So, Sunny, there's this another thing that a lot of people want to know, and of course, a lot of people keep talking about this thing. They want to know what is the next best thing after Bitcoin. So, do you think like if there is maybe like if something has to take over Bitcoin, what would that be? And what other crypto asset has the potential to take over Bitcoin if it comes to that?
I mean, I'll be honest, if I actually saw something or felt something would overtake Bitcoin, I would be talking about that and researching it and looking into it. But I haven't seen anything that I personally believe that surpasses Bitcoin. And I know that's people are going to find that disappointing because everyone's looking for that next coin that's going to moon. I don't know. I always say, right, like I think instead of trying to find that next coin that you think is going to potentially moon, I believe, like I was telling you the other day, right? It's like Bitcoin is not a get rich quick scheme. Right? People think that crypto is just like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to get rich quick. But instead, I would argue that Bitcoin is a don't be poor slowly or something like that. Like it's like a more long term rather. So it's more about not being poor long term than it is about getting rich in the short term. And Bitcoin offers this beautiful opportunity where you can go and make your paintings and sell it for Bitcoin. You can go and work and earn rupees and turn it into Bitcoin. So I don't know. I don't know what that next thing is. I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit of a maybe tangential answer, but if there's one thing that's really, and I think maybe this is a lot of people feel this way, but if there's one thing that has truly caught my attention in the last like few months, and I have the same butterflies in my stomach and the feeling about Bitcoin that I did 10, whatever, 12 years ago, it's AI. It's AI. And I know we're not an AI company, but this has nothing to do with AI. But I do think people should look into it because, you can build smart contracts using AI. You can build that layer 2 application that you were maybe thinking about using AI. You can, it's really come a long way. And I feel that AI will help with educating a lot of people about Bitcoin, will help developers develop products for Bitcoin and crypto, whatever. But I would look at that if people are interested in, just tech in general.
Yeah, but I wasn't really expecting AI to be your answer. I was thinking like, okay, he's going to say something like, "Oh, Shiba Inu is coming up with Shibarium or something like Ethereum," but no, you came up with AI. So I see why you're making this point. And of course, as the technology's constant progress is, it's just in a constant. What do I say? It's like running. It's I can't even keep the track of how many new things are coming up. In the space of AI and the space of Web3 because it's just so fast paced. And
Mm.
yeah, it's a very good field to explore, both Web3 and AI, I would say.
Yeah,
So
and these are just tools like in your toolkit, right? So again, like if I think somebody was asking about layer 1, layer 2, or whatever, like just think of AI as like a superpower where you can now use things like ChatGPT 3 to build a company, by yourself at home, and you could just you could do a lot. You can whip up your marketing material, you can put together legal docs, you can do this, you can do that, and you can do it at the fraction of the time. So, and again, it's not really exciting, but I mean, I just wanted to share that I think there's something really really interesting going on, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this way because there's been a lot of talk about it recently.
yeah. So, guys, if you all are interested in AI and the technology surrounding it, it could be Web3, it could be AI, smart contracts, anything that Sunny has just mentioned, we could definitely do an AMA for you all. Just let us know in the comment section if you want us to do an AMA on this as well.
Yeah, doing a. I was telling you, right? I would love to do a couple of these AMAs on. One would be Bitcoin and AI, like how do those two worlds intersect? The other one I was telling you about was Bitcoin and energy. I think talking
Yes,
about
yes.
volcanoes, nuclear power plants, all that stuff would be fun. But yeah,
I think our audience would really enjoy that in the coming month itself when we are going to schedule these amazing topics for our AMA.
yeah, and I'm really really excited about these mega trends, Shambhavi. Like these larger trends, like I said, AI, energy. Like how does Bitcoin impact freedom? How does it affect the kind of the future of money? And those are the things that, for me personally, get me most excited. Okay, okay, yeah, let's keep going. Bitcoin and cow manure, I like that one.
Yeah,
You
even
never
I.
know. You never know. It's funny.
Okay. So, Sunny, when we look at the utility of Bitcoin and the other cryptos, maybe meme coins, people used to say, I think back in 2021, a lot of people would say that coins like Dogecoin and these meme coins, they don't have much utility as such. Then there are other types of coins. But something that everyone would say that Bitcoin has a lot of utility and so does Ethereum. So, in terms of utility, which coin would you think and why would you think it's like better, Bitcoin? If we had to list a
Good,
few.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. I mean, utility, like you said, is I think the fact that it was first to market, so many people are using it, sending it, buying it, selling it, receiving it, accepting it at their stores, holding it as a digital gold. I think all of that plays a very important part in terms of, like Bitcoin's network effects and how it's going to get I think, to the next, like, let's say, billion people or whatever. Um, Ethereum has a bit of an identity crisis, I would say. And I say that lovingly because I know I've known Vitalik and all these guys since like when they created it, because it was actually made in Toronto. A lot of people don't know. And I literally saw them like write the code, and I have a lot of respect for them, and I think that they've done a great job. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, my heart is with Bitcoin, right? And I could just list a few things in terms of even just Bitcoin and Ethereum. One is, I don't know if you know about this, but like there was this thing called the DAO hack, right? Like within I think a couple months of Ethereum launching. And when that DAO hack happened, it was a smart contract essentially on top of Ethereum that kind of went bad, and some hackers started stealing funds from it, this, that. And the people who run Ethereum said, we don't want this hacker to have all this money, so we're going to fork Ethereum. So they literally forked Ethereum just so they can take the money away from the hacker. Now, some might say that's a good thing because look, the hacker doesn't have the money anymore. But it also demonstrates that a small group of people can change the course of Ethereum, right? And one of the big things about Bitcoin that I keep coming back to is that no group, I believe, no small group of people can just arbitrarily change whatever they want within, the gentleman Lambert brought up this concept of 5 people, and I tried to explain why I don't even think that is so easy, because just because those 5 people upload something does not mean that you or me or anyone has to accept those changes. Maybe I lost a larger plot, but your question was, what was the question in one sentence? Like, why is Bitcoin going to succeed in terms of its network effects? Yeah. So the two main kind of utilities, if you will, that come to my mind is number one is digital gold, right? So it presents, again, the best, I believe, risk-adjusted method to acquire, to save your time, to save your wealth long term. So so gold, digital gold, I believe, is a huge utility, and it's kind of proven it to be that's the case, because like I said, Bitcoin price has gone from $10 now to 25,000. And so that's number one. And I don't think any other, right. And I brought up Ethereum, right? So if you look at Ethereum, even let me ask you, what's the max number of Bitcoin that will ever exist? Do you know?
21 million.
Thank you. What's the max number of Ethereum that will ever exist?
Don't know.
No clue, right? Because there is no max number. Or maybe there is now because they decided now they want to become the money of whatever, sound money. But they changed their tune, like staking, right? Ethereum was not staking based. It was like normal Bitcoin mining. But then, Uncle Vitalik said he doesn't like the energy usage. So he's like, we're going to move to staking, and they moved to staking. So like this, I just gave 2-3 examples. There are many examples where Vitalik decides to do something and it just happens. But let me ask you a question. What does Satoshi actually look like?
Nobody knows that.
Nobody knows. He had the bravery and like the foresight to leave the project 10 years ago or 8 years ago. And even that, I think, takes a tremendous amount of, I don't know, wisdom, whatever you want to call it, courage, because he said, I don't want to be the captain. I don't want to be the leader. I want to give this to everyone, so that Shambhavi is the owner of Bitcoin. Sunny's the owner of Bitcoin. Eva's the owner of Bitcoin. And I think that, again, and the fact that Satoshi handed it to the community so long ago and stepped away and never showed his face again just speaks to another one of the major reasons why I, keep coming on these calls and trying to convince people that Bitcoin is the signal, right? Everything else, to some extent, if you ask me, is noise. And again, at Unocoin, we believe in the free market. We believe in giving you options, and people come to us all the time asking us for this asset, that asset. So we give you that. But in terms of our educational sessions, our AMAs, or for me personally, I try and spend as much time as possible telling people about the differences between Bitcoin and crypto.
Okay, so Sunny, you mentioned something very interesting, that is Bitcoin being the digital gold. Everyone knows that Bitcoin has been, I think, informally termed as the digital gold. It's not an official term, so please don't use it anywhere like that.
Yeah.
But it cannot be said for any other crypto. Like, I'm
Say
not
that again? Yes, it's not. Exactly.
Yeah. So,
That's a great question. That's a great question, right? So in order to determine whether Bitcoin truly is digital gold, you'd have to ask yourself, what is gold, right? And what is gold? So gold, and why was gold used as a form of money for 10,000 years or something like that, like, or however long, not maybe 10,000 years ago or something, or I lost track of the numbers, but it was used as money. I don't think anyone in India needs to be told that gold is like valuable, right? Everybody in India has this almost inherent appreciation for gold,
Good,
right?
yeah.
But again, if you kind of go to Wikipedia and you look up, what is money, or what are the kind of qualities of money, you'll find that money needs to be scarce, right? Ideally, right? So gold is scarce, Bitcoin is scarce. Money needs to be fungible. So fungible means, and by the way, when I say scarce, right, you just demonstrated it earlier. I asked you how many Bitcoins will be in existence ever. You said 21 million. I asked you for Ethereum, or if I ask you for any other crypto, including Doge, you won't have a clear answer for me. So scarcity is super, 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 super important. And I would argue is one of the most important things, because that's what Satoshi brought Bitcoin to our lives for, because Satoshi saw the current monetary system and how governments can print infinite amounts of money and debase our currency, that he said, or she said, or they said, let's build something that's more resilient, that is limited in nature. The second thing I was saying is fungibility. So if I have an ounce of gold, you have an ounce of gold, we can trade it between each other, and it's worth the same. Bitcoin is similar. I can give you one sat for one sat, or one Bitcoin for one Bitcoin, and it's similar, right? And so like this, there's all these kind of different elements that if we go through line by line, divisibility, right? So I would argue Bitcoin is more divisible than than gold, right? So gold, like, think of this tiniest sliver, like a shaving of a gold that you can maybe make. I mean, that's as small as you can get. And it's not even like feasible to go and pay someone with it, because he'll be like, oh, is there anything even there? But with Bitcoin, you're like, Sonny, send me one millionth of a Satoshi. Okay, I'll send you one millionth of a Satoshi. So it's more divisible. So like I said, a scarcity, fungibility, divisibility. And if you go to Wikipedia, you'll see there's like 4 or 5 other points, and you go through each of those and you'll see, wow, this is why Bitcoin people say it's digital gold. But then if you put that same those same 7 things against Ether, against other crypto, you'll be like, oh, they don't exist. And so this is why, again, I keep coming back to Bitcoin as like the main signal. Yeah. And if you understand like why Ethereum was even launched, Vitalik didn't care about making, let's say, a sound money. What Vitalik was trying to do is he was trying to build a world computer. He was trying to build a like a system where you can build decentralized Uber on top of Ethereum. You can build decentralized Facebook on top of Ethereum. His goal was whatever Satoshi did for money, Vitalik said, I want to do that for everything else. I want to do that for every other application. But some people argue that premise was flawed, because there's only so much you can do on a layer 1 solution. There's only so many transactions you can pass through, given the architecture of, crypto. Anyways, I think we're getting to the end of our time, so I'll maybe pause there, Shambhavi.
Yeah, so before we end our AMA, guys who really felt like, okay, this Bitcoin gold conversation was really interesting, because I definitely did. Do tune in on 23rd of March right here on Thursday with Sunny himself, and he'll be telling you how Bitcoin is a better asset than gold. So do not forget 23rd of March with Sunny. Also, for the people who want to know about this new money laundering provision on crypto, do join in on Tuesday, which is, I think, 14th of March. Yeah, that would be 14th of March with Sunny, with Satvik. I'm so sorry, with Satvik, and he'll be telling you everything that you want to know around this provision, what it means, what does it have for you, how is it going to impact the exchanges and the other wallet provider services and everything. So yeah, do join in that AM as well. I think that would be all for today, Sunny. It was a very amazing AMA, and yeah, thank you everyone for joining in and your amazing questions. We'll see you soon on Tuesday itself. In the meantime, enjoy your Holi. Bye, Sunny.
Happy Holi. Bye-bye.